Ghostbusters Afterlife, the long-awaited sequel in the Legacy Ghostbusters storyline.
Yes, reminder, this is a non-spoiler review, so there will not be any spoilers in this review.
We will basically just show footage from the trailers, so if you were avoiding the trailers, I'd say obviously avoid the reviews until you can actually see the movie.
Right.
But this movie had a hell of a start. They kick it off with a bang. My mouth was agape. My eyes were open. I really love how they started this story, bringing us back into the world of the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting that they wanted to start the story this way. It's like, where do you go from here when you start the story this way? And then, of course, you get into the characters and you meet some of the characters. You figure out the conflict at the beginning and you're like, okay, so this is the sort of way that they want to go with this story.
And the biggest thing for me was hearing Rob Simonson's score. Rob Simonson, who actually has been very huge in the world of independent film soundtracks and scores. So he has quite a laundry list of accolades in terms of movies that he scored for. Mm-hmm. And this one, he definitely harnessed his Elmer Bernstein energy. He does tie the score very much into what was given to us so long ago when we first laid our eyes on the Ghostbusters.
Even more so, just straight up using the score in certain things that happen in the movie, which is fine too, because then, you know, you've got that Ghostbusters feel. I feel like that was something that was missing from Ghostbusters 2, was the music from the first one.
Sure.
Granted, the music from the second one is great too.
Randy Edom.
But it was missing the music from the first, which I feel like could have tied it a little bit better there. So using the score in this one, I did enjoy myself because it's the Ghostbusters music.
It absolutely is. It is what kind of brings that connective tissue to the old school characters and the feel that you felt when you were watching Ghostbusters. It is a score I will purchase day one. Giving that kind of a backdrop, you get this the Ghostbusters feel right off the bat. And the other thing that you get a feel for is Jason Reitman. Jason Reitman's style, Jason Reitman's films, like it does seep into this movie very heavily when it comes to the cast of characters, the younger cast of characters especially.
I think it does play to his strengths of what we know Jason Reitman for.
Sure.
And I do like those elements in the movie because you kind of want to have like that grounded feeling in what's going on with some of the new characters, but then also bringing the element of what is Ghostbusters in it together. And I think that there are certain things that do happen that I feel like when it does the Jason Reitman movie, great. But then like the transition to go from that to being like part of the Ghostbusters, it just doesn't feel like it flowed very well,
Sure.
in my opinion, and it felt very rushed.
Yeah, it definitely kind of goes on a speed run. You're in this Jason Reitman world. It is a little slower. It is a little more intimate. You're starting to get to know the characters. The characters are funny. I really enjoyed what they brought to the table just together. But it does end up going through kind of a speed run transition of Ghostbusters when it's time to start busting some heads. And for me, like, it just felt like, okay, we're hitting this beat, we're hitting that moment. It ends up just kind of not so much being homage and changes into replication. So there is plenty of homage in the first half of the movie, and there's plenty of Easter eggs for you to kind of, you know, graze over as you're watching this film. It will warrant rewatches. We are going to watch it again in a couple days. Our opening night, we'll watch it. But it stops being homage at some point and starts just being straight up replication, to where I'm like, okay, you're really rushing through this whole aspect of Ghostbusters, and you know, beat for beat, you know, I enjoy it, but it kind of feels like when you go to Disneyland and there's a ride that you've ridden and you love it so much, so you get on the ride to ride it again. You still have fun, but you've already ridden that ride. That's kind of what ends up happening with this film.
It does feel like, yeah, you know, the story beats as you're going along in the story. I feel like it's very predictable. There are certain things where I I predicted it right off the bat. Like even before we watched the movie and like watching the trailers, I was like, this certain things are gonna happen in this way, which is fine. But sometimes, I know that can hinder people from watching movies because of that predictability. They
Sure.
want to be surprised in what they're seeing. That didn't hinder that part at all. What did do it though, there are some cameos that do happen to pop up in the movie that kind of took me out of the movie to the point I'm like, oh, that person is that person. And it just didn't really fit like it fit
Yeah.
in the story.
And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of cameos in this movie, even just cameos in terms of certain ghosts, certain pieces of equipment that's just kind of in the background that I'm like, oh, freaking out over just something that I've seen and known about ever since, I was a little kid watching the movie. But yeah, there are some cameos that do just pull me right out of the movie. And there's a moment of joy going, oh. It just kind of transitioned from one to the other.
I think it was more so of realizing who the person is, and you're going, oh.
Realizing who the actor is.
Oh, okay.
Sure. Yeah. And for me, they do transition the comedy into more over-the-top style of silliness. There's dad jokes. We've got plenty of dad jokes in this movie, and I love the dad jokes in the beginning, and then they just start hammering the dad jokes down, especially in very important parts, in my opinion.
I agree. I feel like, maybe you're going a little bit over with the jokes, and it just doesn't feel like that should be what they should do in that moment.
Sure.
But
it's their choice.
But it's the choice that happened, and it's there. I think the characters, though, I enjoyed the characters that we get in this movie. With the kids, McKenna Grace is probably my the one that stood out to me the most. Granted, she is a little bit more in the forefront of the movie, but she does stand out the most for me. Which I absolutely love. And the fact that, we do have these characters in here, the first thing that, like, the aesthetic of the movie, the first thing that popped in my head, there we go.
What just popped in there?
It just popped in there.
Was Casper. It gave me a very Casper feel to it.
There is a mix of Casper, there's a mix of Gremlins, there's a mix of Goonies. So, I mean, there is a lot of homage to other films that I feel like, it's like the formula works in those movies. So they're like, okay, let's take a couple of these and put them in here. So, yeah, I mean, the ghost and things that happened in this movie did really give me a feel for Casper, where after the movie was over, the first thing she said was Casper, and I had Casper loaded up, ready to say Casper. And I love Casper.
I love Casper, too.
Dan Aykroyd is Ray as a Ghostbuster in Casper.
But it was not because that scene. It's just more so of the story as a whole. It felt like Casper, and like just the feel I got to watching this movie felt like Casper. Yes, I love Casper. I'm not sure if maybe that was the way that maybe we should have gone with this movie, but like I said, it was still fun.
Casper has tons of heart. Ghostbusters, the original, has heart, and this movie definitely brings heart and heartbreak. There's certain things that happen in this movie that just wrench my heart, just because I just wasn't expecting the story to go a certain way. And it's kind of a driver for what propels these characters forward. And granted, even though we say it is predictable just in terms of story beats, there are certain aspects that really do get me invested emotionally from the get-go all the way to the end of the movie.
Yeah, I feel like you're kind of on a roller coaster of emotion when you're watching this movie, because there are certain parts where you're kind of like, okay, why did you do that? There's other parts where you're like, that doesn't, like... It follows the beats similar to what you've already seen before, but they do it in a silly way. And then there are the moments where you're like, oh, this has a lot of heart. You're rooting for these characters. And then you get to, the legacy that is the Ghostbusters in this movie. And it pulls on that nostalgia for you, very much so. And and then you get a little tear or you choke up a little bit because of what it means.
Yeah, and Ghostbusters is starting to follow that Marvel formula, just in the sense that there is a mid-credit scene and there is a post-credit scene, so make sure you stay all the way through. In my opinion, I felt like I needed those mid-credit and post-credit scenes after watching this movie, and I'm very happy that they were there. They do add a little bit more to what I was kind of hoping for in terms of watching a long-awaited sequel. But guys, we're really excited for you guys to check out Ghostbusters. That way everybody could just form their own opinion about it. We really, really did have a good time for majority of this film. There are aspects to it that I definitely feel like it's more family oriented. It's more for kids, which again, the original Ghostbusters, although it had many adult content situations, still obviously was great for the kids. The kids love us.
The kids love us.
And I did. I love the Ghostbusters. And in this one, I really do think the kids are going to love this iteration of Ghostbusters.
I feel like they would, if they've known the Ghostbusters, though, I feel like they will like this.
Sure.
I feel like you do have to watch the first, like if you have a kid that has never seen Ghostbusters, I feel like you probably would want to see the first one and then have them come see this one.
Everybody should see the first one. That's the thing.
That's true.
But either way, guys, eventually when you see Ghostbusters, tell us down in the comments below. If you're watching this before you see Ghostbusters, just let us know which Ghostbusters is your favorite. Could be any of them, including the game.
2016. Oh.
No, I went game.
Oh, the game is great. I
Sure.
love the game. I think
Hell,
that
if
is
you want
probably one of my
2016,
favorite
go
ones. But
ahead,
2016, if you like that one too, cool.
It's not in my top 3, but actually this one now is probably 3rd in my top 3. But either way, guys, thank you so much. You can like and subscribe.
And did a thing on our Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram, Discord.
All the social networking gin joints, you know where they are. Kick into the party, feel the party. Keep the party going on our Patreon. Thank you guys so much, and as always...
Now it's time to say goodbye.
Hey, anybody see a ghost?
Bye.
Bye.